The last seconds of the Rings of Power Episode 6 had me wondering what in Naru's name is going on. After weeks of planning, the Amazon Rings of Power launched their war for the Southlands. The men-populated area has been targeted by Adar's Orc army, who have decided to occupy it after, of course, driving out the residents. Despite the fact that the Southlanders are hardly a match, luck would have it that the true monarch of the country recently made a buddy with the Soul Elf in Middle-earth whose goal is to eliminate all of Morgoth's followers. Even luckier, Halbrand and Galadriel were able to rally an army of Nmenóreans to their cause, and as a result, the Southlands were spared from Adar's orcs. But alas, joyous occasions come too soon. The Southlands tremble furiously as the soldiers sip ale and breathe in the foul smell of decaying orcs. Fire, darkness, and cracks in the ground follow the bellowing torrent of flowing water and dense smoke. Here is what actually transpired at the conclusion of Episode 6 of the Rings of Power. The terrible revelation in the Rings of Power Episode 6 begins when a stunned Theo learns that the priceless bundle recovered during the battle was only an ordinary axe, and that Waldreg actually had the strange black sword hilt. Adar must have swapped gears when he first heard the thundering hooves of the Nmenórean cavalry, even though the changeover isn't visible on screen. Adar mentions a mission for Waldreg when he leaves Tuhurad's bar right before the Nmenórean army attacks, but he leaves out the specifics, and the renegade Southlander vanishes for the duration of the conflict. Adar must have immediately given Waldreg the blade and instructed him where to take it before Nmenóreans steal Medorc flesh. Then, as the conflict raged, Waldreg quietly disappeared. Adar is seen fleeing on horseback with the sword, but his flight is actually a cunning deception to induce Galadriel to go after a half-blunt axe while Waldreg sneaks off with the real thing. It's no accident that Adar chose Waldreg, who is relatively new to his evil enterprise, for this duty. Using the sword requires the user to summon its magical blade using their own blood as a sacrifice, but as Theo's attempts demonstrate, there's a certain knack to this trick. Since Waldreg is the only person other than Theo to actually use the weapon, the Southlands tavern landlord is already adept at drawing out the blade's inner sorcery, which he does effortlessly during the Rings of Power Episode 6's final moments. Ismail Cruz Cordova's Arendir previously described the black sword hilt as a key endowed with old and dark magic from the time of Morgoth, and pointed out an identical weapon lodged in the walls of the elves' Ostirith Tower. This was in the Rings of Power. If Arendir had only lowered his gaze a little, the solution would have been obvious. Adar must have known there was a curiously sword-shaped slot beneath the stone sword at Ostirith. Turning the key in this slot, which is Theo's black sword, causes the stone dam erected into the Efeldath Mountains to collapse, releasing a torrent of river water from top to bottom. Who made this catastrophic keyhole is a significant topic that the Rings of Power left unanswered because it was probably not the Sylvan Elves standing watch at Ostirith. One can only presume that the geographical trap was set by Sauron or Morgoth himself as part of their contingency plan to regroup in the Southlands in the case of defeat, since the Rings of Power had established that the Southlands were under Morgoth's authority during the First Age. Either they were unaware of it or thought it was just a handy place to store their arrows, according to the Ostirith elves. In any case, the position of the keyhole gives yet another justification for picking the Southlands in particular. Whether it was Morgoth, Sauron, or Adar who conceived of the Rings of Power's Black Sword plan, the ultimate goal was for river water to flow beneath a sizable volcano near Tuhurad, causing an eruption that raises the surrounding plains and transforms the Southlands into a wasteland where nothing grows and nothing good lives. The volcano's smoke produces a jet of darkness that eventually envelops the Southlands and obstructs the light. Perpetual darkness is well known in the Lord of the Rings for its perpetual darkness, regardless of the time of day or night. It appears that Waldreg's turning of a sword hilt in the Rings of Power Episode 6 marks the beginning of that darkness, hence this explosive conclusion serves as the establishment of Mordor. Confirmation is provided when the captured orcs start chanting Udun, which is also the title of the episode, in unison. According to Tolkien's legend, Mordor's Udun Valley extends from the northwest corner to the Isen Mount. The devastation of the Southlands by the Rings of Power reveals the exact formation of that enormous valley, but, more significantly, indicates that the volcano Waldreg's black sword triggers is probably certainly Mount Doom, the location of the forging and destruction of the One Ring. The Rings of Power Episode 6 reveals a significant bombshell that many viewers would have imagined Adar has been doing Sauron's bidding. According to Joseph Mall's Wicked Elf, Adar and Sauron disagreed over how to treat orcs since Sauron was prepared to experiment on his army while Adar felt maternal and protective. While the Rings of Power viewers will know that Adar is utterly mistaken that he killed Sauron at this showdown, The exchange demonstrates that Adar and Sauron don't always share the same objectives. The Shroud of Darkness is a result of Adar's desire to make a place where the Orcs can live, while Sauron wants to retake control of Middle-earth. Because Adar and Sauron's intentions don't align, the Southlands' future in the Rings of Power isn't clear. Adar doesn't exactly have many Orcs left to resettle thanks to the Nmenóreans. On the other hand, Sauron is nowhere to be found, giving the Orc father a free run at seizing the newly transformed land he helped create. The difference in Galadriel's response from everyone else's in the last moments of the Rings of Power Episode 6 is one of its most puzzling aspects. Galadriel does nothing except stand and watch the black ash and flames wash over her as the Southlanders and Nmenóreans flee for their lives from flying chunks of molten rock. Although Galadriel's peculiar reaction is hard to understand, one theory holds that she is defeated by the knowledge that Sauron's soldiers defeated her. The Southlands are the closest to fulfilling Galadriel's lifelong commitment to putting an end to the darkness in Middle-earth. Just as Galadriel was beginning to enjoy the taste of a major victory, the ruptured landscape forces her to accept a complete and utter failure to protect the Southlands, as well as a demoralizing blow to her long-held aspirations of revenge. In this moment of misery, the Rings of Power's Galadriel genuinely doesn't seem to care whether she lives or dies. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to comment, subscribe, and give us a like.